Light. It is the original force of creation. It erupted from the theoretical primordial darkness of the early universe, radiating heat into the cold through waves of photons. Light and heat shaped the universe during its formation. Most energetic activity at this time came from photon interactions. Today, light is still creating. Most notably, it is at least partly responsible for the existence of humanity. There are many things that are thought to have contributed to life on Earth, but inarguably there would be no life without the sun. Life on Earth, in nearly all of its forms, has learned to harvest some small fragment of the sun's energy. Plants use light to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen through photosynthesis. Animals use the heat from the sun to warm themselves and maintain a proper body temperature. Humans build solar panels. Photons bombard photovoltaic solar cells to knock electrons free, and then those electrons travel through conductors, generating a net electric current in the cell. These are all, relatively speaking of course, highly inefficient means of gathering energy from light, indicative of how relatively primitive the technology of man really is. Theoretical physicists often hypothesize about a future where humans have become so technologically advanced that they can harvest energy directly from a star, usually by way of a giant superstructure built near or around the star called a Dyson construct. These constructs would somehow drain the energy of the star, redirecting it toward whatever purpose humanity deemed necessary at the time. The actual technology behind such incredible structures, however, would require breakthroughs in physics, chemistry, and mechanical engineering that humans simply haven't come anywhere close to making yet. It will likely take humanity eons of technological advancement before we are able to create such incredible and perfect structures. However, there are certain observations that have been made that would suggest that something may already have beaten humanity to the punch. That there are already giant structures siphoning energy directly from stars in the universe. This is even believed to occur on our sun, and there is actually photographic evidence that would seem to support it. Something strange appears to be absorbing energy directly from the sun. This is the story of the Sun Drinker Anomaly. The Solar Dynamics Observatory is an orbital telescope launched in February of 2010. A part of NASA's A Living with a Star program, the SDO was meant to determine the causes of variability in the sun's energy. There are clearly observed variations in solar activity, and these variations have a decisive impact on Earth. Total solar irradiance refers to the total amount of solar energy that reaches Earth. This measurement of solar irradiance increases during times when there is a lot of activity on the sun, and subsequently decreases during periods of lower activity. These variations are more predictable than one might think, adhering to an approximate 11-year cycle. During the cycle, the sun will vary between intense and tempestuous to calm and docile. According to NASA, these variations in the solar cycle can impact Earth's temperature by around 0.275 degrees Fahrenheit, which accounts for approximately 25% of the global temperature increase observed on Earth since the 1950s. The SDO contains many technologies required for observing the sun, including an atmospheric imaging assembly, which takes images of the solar atmosphere in several wavelengths, and an ultraviolet reader, which measures variability in ultraviolet irradiance. With its AIA component, the SDO can take images with roughly 2 to 4 times the resolution as other solar observatory technologies like the SOHO, or Solar and Heliocentric Observatory. It was because of the AIA and MDI components of the SDO that NASA have been able to capture some of the most stunning, clear, and high-resolution images of the burning ball of hydrogen that provides light to the Earth. The SDO has helped to observe and clarify certain phenomena on the sun, most specifically the aforementioned variations in solar energy and activity. However, with such amazing imaging capabilities, it was bound to be the case that there would be anomalies, things that we can observe in high definition but have relative trouble explaining. This short video, spliced together from still frames taken in progression, is one of those anomalies. Taken on March 12, 2012, the video is directly from NASA's SDO data and has not been doctored or altered in any fashion besides putting the images into a sequence. When confronted with this video, it can be difficult to process. What it appears to be is something that many people consider to be impossible. It appears to be a large, circular or spherical object or craft, the size of a large planet, sitting just beside the surface of the sun. A spire of plasma spiraling out from that surface and seemingly being absorbed by the object. If there were ever footage that could make skeptics of extraterrestrial, technologically advanced life outside of Earth question their beliefs, it might be this one. The video seems so clean-cut, so clear and bold-faced, that to many, it may as well be a photograph of a little green man in a flying saucer. This image, to many, is the smoking gun that proves that extraterrestrial life exists in the universe. To them, these images are the culmination, the climax of years of ridicule and self-doubt. To them, this finally justifies the things that they believe. This was direct imaging data from NASA that was untampered with, and depicted something so obviously extraterrestrial that NASA did not even seem to come out to disprove it. A quick internet search still yields results claiming that this phenomenon is proof of extraterrestrial existence, and still goes on unexplained to this day. Though, as is the nature of space observation, things are not always as they seem. To an astronomer, particularly one who spends their time observing solar activity, this video's implications are very much reduced. A trained eye will very quickly spot the hallmark signs of what is referred to as a solar prominence. A solar prominence, like a solar flare, is a type of coronal mass ejection, which occurs when gases are pushed out of the surface of the sun. However, instead of breaking off and becoming a flare which can reach the inner planets of the solar system, a prominence returns to the surface in an arc, as it is contained by the sun's electromagnetic field. This phenomenon is often accompanied by something called a coronal prominence cavity, which takes the form of a dark, circular, or semicircular indent in the sun's corona. This occurs because of simple physics, as the spire or filament of burning solar gas is very dense. This creates a clear density gradient, which causes gravity to drain density from the cavity to the filament, leaving behind the large, dark circle that is observed. Quite simply, this is not a spacecraft sucking plasma from the sun, but rather it is the sun sucking plasma from its corona just before a coronal mass ejection. With the incredible modern imaging capabilities of the space agencies, one would think that confusion over the identification of objects in space would be non-existent. However, humanity always grows accustomed to the technology that is available, and seeing an image in stark high definition for the first time can be like seeing it as something entirely new and different, something alien, perhaps. It is important, however, to give credit where credit is due. NASA and astronomy academia have done a tremendous amount of work observing the sun, and that work has been thoroughly documented. Solar prominence cavities occur all over the sun, and images of them are taken frequently. There is enough publicly available research on solar prominences, solar flares, and other variations in solar activity to keep one occupied on many a rainy day, if one were interested enough to read such things. The issue here is one that is all too common. Academics observe and discover things. They document those things. However, from comfortable perches inside the ivory towers residing so high above the rest of humanity, it can be easy for academia to become unconcerned with the impact that some of its research might have without context. Such lofty positions can often create a disconnect, or even worse, a disdain between the educated and the uneducated. Academia can often spend most of its time ridiculing the underinformed, when really it should be informing them. It has been over 7 years since imaging data from NASA created this confusion, and it seems the best they had to offer to clarify that confusion was several condescending articles from internet-based news sources, which is a shame because all they had to do was provide context and show that while this could have looked like an extraterrestrial phenomenon near our sun, it was really just a very common solar activity. Although, imagine that there is an advanced extraterrestrial species in a planet-sized space vessel, and they needed to glean some small amount of plasma from the surface of a star to refuel before the next leg of their galactic voyage. Perhaps such extraterrestrials are aware that our sun is a middle-aged star, which has a planet right inside of its habitable Goldilocks zone, and there could be lucky, brainy monkeys watching with prying eyes and radio telescopes, so as not to disturb the unsophisticated bedlam of an underdeveloped species. Perhaps these extraterrestrials decided that it was pertinent to camouflage themselves. How better to do so than to rely on an astronomical phenomenon that happens to look very much like a giant spaceship draining plasma from the sun? Light does not always reveal the truth. Sometimes it directly obscures it. Thank you for watching and listening. If you like this video and you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Or if you'd like to support me in more of a direct way, you can buy some Phobos Media merchandise from my Represent.com merch store, or support me via Patreon. Links are in the description down below.